Oh, good morning. I'm Jim Carefoot with Armada Technologies, and welcome to our Friday Find It, Fix It webinar. A short, sort of a 30-minute or less informal guide to some tips and tools that you can use doing testing in low-voltage electrical systems for the green industry, which is a specialty of ours. So we're going to look at some slides this morning primarily. I've got a short video that we're going to use to illustrate some concepts, and I'm going to switch over and show you a variety of meters. We're talking today about whether you need an electrical meter and exactly what kind you might need. Some of you may already own one, and you may need to have a little different one for the application that you're testing. So with that, we'll get started here, and we'll go through a couple of concepts. And firstly, we want to determine whether or not we need an electrical meter. Some of you may have one, some of you may not. We do a couple of quick tests that would say whether you need to have one. And I'm an electrical engineer, so I say, oh, every newborn baby should have an electrical meter. But we're here to decide whether you need one or not, and we have a couple of quick litmus tests that we use to determine that. First of all, because we make some meters, one of the simpler meters we have, at least expensive meters, we have published a little cheat card, and it lists the 5 most common things you do with a meter, if you're in the green industry particularly. And you can look at that cheat card and say, if you're doing 2 or 3 things on this card pretty regularly, you probably need to have at least a simple electrical meter. Here's the slide shows that little card. I have an example of it here too, if you can see my little webcam. We have it, so business card size thing. I can make these available. We also have them on our blog. That's information I'll give you a little later. But useful little card. If you do these things, number one, do you ever check a clock to see if it's got 24 volts on it? Excuse me a second here. Just checking my audio settings. If you ever need to do that kind of thing, you really have to have a meter to do it, although there are some alternative tools I'll also mention in a minute. Checking a clock output, checking a solenoid condition, whether you have a solenoid on the bench or it's in your toolbox or it's in a valve box somewhere and you need to find out if it's faulty, you'll need to check resistance on the solenoid. If you need to check whether or not AC power is available in an outlet, very common kind of a problem. Ground GFCI breaker trips and it kills power to the clock, and you need to make sure that the power outlet's running in the first place. You can do that with an electrical meter. Checking batteries, whether it's the batteries in your flashlight or the battery in your car, you can use an electrical meter to check that. Another common thing to do. I put checking fuses on here. Normally you can visually check a fuse if you're dealing with a situation that's got a cylindrical fuse or even an automotive type fuse in it. You can look at it and see if it's been popped, but I never completely trust that. I always ohm a fuse out to make sure that it's good. Anyway, 5 things on this cheat card. You do those things, 2 or 3 of them, you should think about having a meter, even a simple meter, because this cheat card applies to very simple meters. The second test, if you're involved in this troubleshooting process at all, and this slide illustrates the checklist that we have, troubleshooting guide that we use for troubleshooting an irrigation controller. And what I've done is highlighted the parts on the box here where a meter is important to do the troubleshooting task. And you can see there are a number of places where you kind of have to get something out and check a voltage, check a current, check a resistance, things to give you clues about where the faults are when you're doing fault finding. So if you are doing this process, or if you are doing 2 or 3 of the things on our meter cheater card, you need to have a meter. And what we'll always tell you when you're looking at a meter is buy the cheapest, simplest one you can get, and to do the job that you need to do. And that's the test we're applying here today, is what job do you need to do, how fancy does your meter need to be. And this slide gives you an illustration of the kinds of meters that you'll typically see on a distributor shelf, or in our product line for that matter, and I'll show you some examples here in just a moment. A full auto digital clamp meter, one of our more popular sellers in the Armada line, is a very handy, easy to use, fairly sophisticated meter. Kind of $125 class meter. A manual analog meter, Harbor Freight kind of thing, we're talking $10, $15. It's got a needle on it. It can be real difficult to read. I'll show you an example of one of those in just a second here. I prefer not to use one of those myself. A really handy gadget is this manual digital multimeter. We show our Pro 30 on the right there. It has a digital readout of the parameters, volts, ohms, and what have you. That's a $20 class gadget. Pretty handy, and I'll show you an example of one of those in a minute, because it has some nice features for compactness and ease of use that I think are important. So Just before I show you a little video, I want to touch on the whole idea about you have a range of cost and capability in meters. Always use the simplest thing that you can get away with. And I showed the Pro 30 on the lower left there. That's in that category to me. A very simple, manually selected dial multimeter going all the way up to our more sophisticated milliamp clamp meter in the top right. And you go over a range of, say, 10 to 1 in selling price on these. So sometimes it pays to have a look at what you absolutely have to have. And I would say when I'm out doing things, I would rather have that meter on the top right. It does everything that I need it to do, and so I would certainly recommend something like that. I want to just switch over quickly and show you an example from our YouTube channel. Bruce Nelson at our company is giving a little illustration of how to use a couple meters to check a power outlet to find out if it's working. So let's switch over to that for a moment.
The first thing you want to do when you're diagnosing or troubleshooting an electrical system, irrigation electrical system, is make sure that the power is going into the appliance, in this case the clock. My dad was an electrician his whole life, and the first thing he always looked at is the thing that's not working getting the power. If you're not getting the power, it's not going to work. So the way we do that is with a multimeter. There's lots of different styles of multimeter. This is our Pro 30. It's a manual multimeter, so I have to select AC voltage, and I have to select a range that's appropriate. In this case, these outlets usually put out 110, 120, so I'm going to put it on the 200 range. I'm going to insert the probes into the outlets. And before you do that, a little commercial here, just make sure you read the instructions on these things. It's a world of liability, and they've talked to you about how to be safe, how to be careful. Read those instructions from the manufacturer that you get. I'm going to insert these probes into the outlet. The number here says 122.2, okay? So I know I've got power at this outlet. So if this were hooked to my clock, I would know that my clock is getting my source power. There's also multimeters like this one. It's called our Pro 90, and it is completely automatic. I don't have to dial anything on it. Same thing, insert those leads, 122.5. What's nice about this one, this Pro 90, is I don't have to do any dialing, any knowledge. It's monkey proof. You basically just insert it, it gives you the answer.
Okay, I hope you're able to see and hear that. That's a very good illustration of a simple task off one of our meter cheater cards. What I have up on the webcam right now is a picture of some meters that are examples of the ones we're talking about here. And excuse me just a second, I'm going to see if I can verify that this is visible to you folks in the audience. Okay, that looks good. All right. Just making sure that we don't have webinars with blank screens and people sitting here listening just to me instead of seeing something useful. Okay, what I'm going to do here is show you a few of these meters, and of course, because we're in the green industry, our line of meters is intended to suit these applications. So we use that kind of as an example, but there are a number of sources of meters out there that are available. What I'm showing here across the bottom are the kind of good, better, best meters that we have at Armada, but they are good examples of the range of things. This is the Pro 30 meter, which is the simple one that Bruce just showed to checking a power outlet. This is one of the ones that's one of my favorites, probably our biggest seller in meters, certainly. Look at it, it's relatively compact. On the side, you can literally stick this in your shirt pocket or in your back pocket, not any bigger than your cell phone, and the cords wrap around the side. Pretty useful thing. I use it all the time, especially for checking batteries. You can throw it in your briefcase or anything else. One of the things, though, it's an inexpensive meter, is that it is manual. That's part of what comes with the inexpensive part. Is it isn't automatic. You have to know the settings that put in there, which is why we have these meter cheater cards. When I mentioned earlier, it's on our. You're able to download this thing from. There's a little reference card from our blog, but we can send them to you. Some of your distributors carry these. The 5 most common things you can do, and with this meter particularly, what are the knob settings and readings that you should be establishing. The other meter that Bruce showed is an example of an automatic clamp meter. I think these are pretty handy, and we use these pretty exclusively in green industry because people are water people and plant people, not electrical people. So this kind of an automatic meter has a single button to turn it on, and it automatically ranges. It tells you its status of its battery. No matter what you do, plug it into or clamp it onto, it automatically switches over and does the reading for you. And the big difference you can see between that one and the less expensive one, it's got a clamp jaw. This allows you to clamp over a wire without opening it up and measure the amount of power flowing in the wire. So pretty useful for a lot of tasks, even from measuring pump current all the way up to lighting. And speaking of lighting, when you're starting to go upscale from the lesser expensive up the range here, the next one up is a true RMS version of that same type of meter. The reason that we have to have this sometimes is because of LED lighting systems. LED lighting systems require a true RMS measurement, and you might have to upgrade something in the range of $50, for example, to get a more sophisticated RMS clamp meter. At the top of the range is this one, which is my favorite, with the Pro 93. It is a true RMS meter and a clamp meter, and it's a very sensitive milliamp meter. It's used commonly in troubleshooting two-wire systems where we make connectionless tests on the system to try to determine where power's been flowing properly and not. It measures quite a wide range of currents and voltages as well. So all of these are multimeters in that regard. Here's a good example of a less expensive analog multimeter. You can find these, and you may even have one of these in your box. When I was a Buck engineer, we used these exclusively because all that was available were needle gauges. Reading the needle on these things can be kind of a challenge, especially in dim light. And in an inexpensive one like this, the scale is pretty small, and trying to read it is a problem. So anyway, not a terrible thing. You can stow the leads on the back, and it's inexpensive. Its main benefit. This is a meter type that we don't carry or offer. It's what I would call an engineer's meter. It's a nice digital meter. It can do a lot of stuff. But if you look at the scale on the front there, you can select from about 100 parameters that you want to measure. And like I said, our friends and customers in this industry are plant and water people. They're not electrical people. So you don't need an electrical engineer's meter. You need something more in the range of simplicity and interesting operation. So I'm going to just switch back over here to my control panel. Excuse me just a moment. It takes a second to do these things. So we should be back here to the slideshow where I want to resume the points I was making about this. Again, I just showed you a range of meters. These meters can cost anywhere from $20 to $250, for example, and you need to pick the simplest, cheapest one to get the job done that you're after. If you're just doing the things that are on the meter cheater card, you're probably good with that kind of a meter. If you're stepping up and doing more sophisticated tests, including LED lighting, power testing, and troubleshooting in a two-wire irrigation system, you need to step up to true RMS and higher sensitivity meters. So this is a quick illustration of the kind of gadget features you can get in one of these. I'm not going to read this eye chart, but it goes all the way from you have to be able to measure volts and ohms and amps, the basic collection of electrical things, and you like simplicity of controls. You want good value for money, meaning it's inexpensive. That little meter, the Pro 30 that I showed before, does the first four things on this list, and so pretty good value for the things that it does. The Pro 90, which is the one on the left that Bruce also used to measure AC power in the outlet, it does down through points 1 through 7. So as I say, once you start needing to add these things, you're accumulating more features and more cost. The really good value of the Pro 90 to me is the simplicity of operation with a single button, auto ranging, no messing around with selecting ranges of voltages and AC current and DC current. You can take that meter and move it right from your car battery to the wall outlet without a problem. So again, this is the least expensive and best solution for many people. Even if you aren't making a lot of electrical measurements, having a little electrical meter like this in your your vehicle or in your toolbox can allow you to help someone at a distance who calls you on you talk to someone on the phone and get some advice about doing some troubleshooting. It may ask you to check the voltage on the line, and if you don't have a meter, you can't help them out. So really good thing to have in the toolbox right along with screwdrivers as far as I'm concerned, but then we're test people. So here's an example of using a upscale clamp meter because of a particular application. Outdoor lighting. LED transformer units for providing outdoor lighting, them becoming much more common. The old incandescent type lighting systems, it didn't matter too much what kind of clamp meter you used, but when you're doing LED lighting, you're dealing with a much more complex digital kind of function. And in order to measure properly the voltages and currents that are going on, you need an RMS clamp meter. Now, RMS stands for the root of the mean squared, which is a geek word you don't need to know, but RMS means that it is particularly a computed measurement device as opposed to just an average measurement device. It reads real power. And this can be important in systems like LED lighting where you have loading up the system, trying to decide whether you've got the appropriate amount of amps and current and whether you're having problems with the system. The other step up that I mentioned at the top of our line is this milliamp clamp meter, very commonly used in two-wire systems because it has a very high sensitivity and it has true RMS both. And when you're troubleshooting two-wire systems, you can go through unobtrusively, not opening any connections, go through the entire system, clamping over wires and looking for current misroutes, and that is what goes on with that. We have a separate little class where we talk about that, but this is just an illustration of a step up. You're doing two-wire irrigation, you need a two-wire milliamp clamp meter that reads true RMS. So I mentioned earlier that there are a couple of ways of getting around these things, depending on whether you have alternatives and whether you're kind of focused on one task. That little power cube on the left, so I call it a power cube. It's an inexpensive thing you can buy at Home Depot or one of your regular distributors. I commonly see them in irrigation and lighting distributors. Power cube can just be plugged into an outlet, and it gives you idiot lights to tell you whether the outlet is wired and powered properly. Really handy thing, less than $10. Pick one of those up, a good thing to carry around. The other alternative, if you're doing a lot of testing, troubleshooting in an irrigation system, is to have an irrigation system tester. And that Pro 48 that you see off to the right there measures things like resistance and voltage, and it does it with an idiot light system again, meaning giving you green light, red light, whether it's good or bad. And this can be used to substitute for having a meter. If you're just troubleshooting an irrigation controller, put the thing on the certain places and points at the right time, get green lights, red lights. You don't have to have a meter if you have such a thing. So continuum of devices available, simple electrical meter, $20 class kind of thing, more sophisticated, targeted, high-performance meter, $275 class device on the upper right there. The whole thing depends on what kind of job you're doing. Stepping all the way up to true RMS clamp on a meter, all the way down to stick it, pull it out of your pocket, and know what kind of settings to put on there. So having said all that, we're trying to keep this short and to the point, and we are spending less than 30 minutes to do these things. A recording of these sessions is available on our YouTube site, by the way, a little later on this morning. If someone needs to hear this kind of thing, you can always check back on our YouTube site. Next week, we're going to talk about using these meters to check low-voltage lighting systems. A kind of a problem. A lot of folks that are involved in the green industry generally not only water, they do light. And because of that, we have some stuff that is really handy for doing troubleshooting on irrigation systems or on low-voltage lighting systems and how they get used and why you would buy a little more expensive meter. Those are all issues, kind of like we talked about this morning, that we'll get more into detail with next week. The week beyond that, we'll be talking about using the ground fault locator to find damage in buried cables. A less common kind of an application, the ground fault locator, but really critical for many applications where you need to find something quickly. All of these things, meters, testers, locators, they are there to solve problems more quickly than you can do them by other means. And that's a good illustration is a ground fault locator. Find a damaged buried cable very quickly instead of potholing for 2 days. I can recommend our YouTube channel, which is shown there, youtube.com/user/ArmadaTech. You can search for ArmadaTech on the YouTube channel and see we have more than 20 demo and training videos, like the little one that I showed earlier where Bruce was testing a wall outlet using 2 different kinds of meters. You'll see that on there. You'll see the ground fault. You'll see the use of locators and separate techniques on locators, short and long videos. Either way, I certainly can recommend it. That little cheater card that I used earlier, is on the blog site, and which is address is shown here, armadaupdate.wordpress.com. You go to that site and you can download a number of things, including the schedule for these webinars that we do. For example, what's going on which Fridays, what the topic is going to be, and go to our YouTube site and actually see a recording of the topic we covered that day. Download the meter cheater card. You can even download a sheet that's got QR codes on it for applications for the demos. And the reason I mention that is if you don't know how to use a unit properly necessarily, you pull out this little cheat sheet that's got QR codes on it, scan it with your smartphone, it takes you to a demo video to show you how to use that gadget. Lots of interesting things, resources we try to make available. I'm Jim Carefoot, and I am at jcarefoot@armadatech.com. If you have questions or interest, you'd like to see other topics covered, please don't hesitate to send me an email, and I will answer those things as best as possible. So once again, thank you for joining us this morning. Hope that you'll join us on another Friday. If you have topics, as I said, that you're interested in covering, we're happy to add those to our schedule as well. So with that, good morning, and thanks. I hope to see you again.